Welcome to The Prize Inside. A chiropractor's journey in everyday holistic health and vitality. Here, your host, Dr. Jeremy Myers, delves into the remarkable journeys of everyday people who have embraced the path to health and healing. Through his practice, Dr. Jeremy encounters inspiring stories of profound transformation and the power of true healing within each of us. Stay tuned as we discuss various holistic topics and unlock the healing potential that lies within us all.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Oh, let me pick a different. Is this it? Okay, there we go. Good evening. Welcome to 1% Tribe. Hopefully you guys are having a fantastic day. We had one of those in Michigan. It was really hot, and then it's cooled down significantly. So it was very, very beautiful night. Got a lot done this weekend. A couple of things in my world. I'm learning how to smoke meat. So with and kombucha at the same time. So if you don't know what kombucha is, it is a fermented drink. I'm ready to, I've created what they call my SCOBY. And so we're doing that. My daughter is patiently trying to teach me how to do sourdough bread, which has been pretty cool. So we had a pretty packed weekend. It was fun. We do this thing called garbage can pizza, where we have this really cool like chimaria thing. Put the fire underneath, have a grill on the top. You take a garbage pan pail with a hole in it, and you put it on the top, and then you have basically a fired oven pizza. So that was really fun. Yeah, we did a lot this weekend. Word to the wise, don't have me barbecue you anything yet. There's a few things. The meat itself turned out really, really good. The problem is Jeremy doesn't follow all the instructions that are there. So there is this, it's kind of a layer of, I wouldn't say connective tissue in my world that you got to take off, as you're going. So I didn't do that. It's like this little layer. It's like a sheet that kind of keeps it going. And they were rough to get through. So you definitely are going to eat fast with the ribs that I made, but it was my first time ever. So now I know, right? But, the flavor of it was fantastic. So that was really fun. We did quite a bit like that. Got a lot done today with yard and everything else. So, and thank goodness for you guys, I got all 7 chickens into their coop. On the days that we're here, we just kind of let them free range and do their thing. And my family thinks I am the chicken whisperer, but I'm losing that as 2 of them decide when they want to go in. So that took a little bit. But tonight, I'm hopefully get your interest roused, because we're going to talk about trace minerals. That's one thing. I'm going to tell you about an element that kind of piqued my interest this last week or so. I heard a psychologist talk about one that is not really well known, and we'll hit that tonight within kind of one of those that a lot of people have heard. It's a trace mineral, but and what a trace mineral is. So like we have macro minerals, micro minerals, all those things. So that really the biggest thing is like, what is this trace minerals thing? Feels like it's just another, add to some supplements we should be taking, right? So we'll give you a good glimpse into these types of minerals. Good thing is your body, 2 things is the innate intelligence of your body needs them very badly. The good news is not as much as some of those macro minerals that we know, right? The bigger amounts of minerals, but they're good to know. They're good to know. The information behind them can be very helpful in health and healing. So that's why we're going to start with, like, they call them the Magnificent Six. And then we're going to but first we're going to break down what these are, why they're so important. A lot of times they're called trace minerals or micro minerals. Okay. So before that though, make sure you're subscribing. I went up 2 subscribers in Rumble. I'm so pumped. I went from like 80 to 82. So that means I'm 18 away from 100. And 100 gets me like I don't know. I have no idea what it gets me, but it says like if you get to 100. So remember that the prize inside a chiropractor's journey on Rumble, the prize inside a chiropractor's journey on YouTube. And the big one is I'd love to get my newsletter, kind of one that I can communicate with you guys a little bit better. Tribe1, TRIB1.substack.com. It's a free newsletter. It's kind of, I take the transcripts from this and make sure you get it, and if there's any information in there, you can just have it as a paper type situation too. My hope is eventually I'll get good at like putting information on there for you and those kind of things. All right. So remember that, tribe1.substack.com. The other thing, remember too, I'm in all the podcast areas. So if you look up the prize inside a chiropractor's journey and look up a podcast, or just let's say you use Spotify or iTunes or any of those, get on one of those and subscribe there, because a lot of times it's really cool. You can just listen to the audio. One of my favorites right now is Mike Rowe created. What's he called? Just look at the guy from Dirty Jobs. He makes a great podcast that I am just enthralled with. He just does some really good interviews. I have lined up some major good interviews. I'm hoping that will come to pass this coming up in the next few weeks. Got a couple of them that you'll really enjoy. So with that said, let us get rolling on Trace Minerals 101. The 1% nutrient with 100%, the 1% of the nutrients that have 100% impact. All right. So what are we going to go over? We're going to go over trace micro minerals versus macro minerals. Okay. So what your body already knows how to use these minerals if you give them the raw materials. And where do they fit into the 1% lifestyle? Many of these were discovered, these trace minerals or micro minerals, because there are processes the innate intelligence uses already in chemical processes for certain things in the human body. That's how they got discovered. Not that they're like just floating around, because they were trace. They're not very much, but they found them in different processes of the human body. So that was good. All right. So now before we begin to go into each of these trace minerals, what I'd like to do, understand what the trace mineral means. So I'm going to read a little definition here. So your body needs minerals in 2 different scales. Macro minerals like calcium, magnesium, potassium, and sodium are needed in relatively large amounts, often measured in hundreds of milligrams or even grams per day. So that's where you get the macros, right? Trace minerals, on the other hand, are needed in tiny amounts. We're talking about micrograms to a few milligrams, yet your body cannot function without them. And here's the piece that ties right back into innate intelligence. Your body doesn't manufacture these minerals on its own. So you have to have these from outside. It relies entirely on what you give it through food, water, and soil. Okay. So while the amounts are small, the impact is enormous. These are the cofactors that unlock hundreds of enzymatic reactions of your body is already wired to run. So remember, in innate intelligence, we have all these chemical reactions. You have a giant chemistry set going on all the time, every day, instantly. That's the beauty of the innate intelligence. If you just supply it with the raw materials. So we have to make sure all those actions and everything else that we're learning, what these look like, right, end up having everything that you need inside there. That'd be a fun podcast to do too. Maybe we'll do it, like on Krebs cycle, or how your body does blood clots. That one was always fascinating. How does it heal a wound? There's so many really good chemical reactions that need things like these little trace minerals to complete the action. Okay. That's the whole idea behind today's episode, is understanding these small inputs, these small little things will give massive downstream effects. So that's why we call it the 1% nutrients with 100% impact. Okay. So I wanted to do a little bit of the history of trace mineral discovery because it's kind of interesting. These aren't something that has a big, hey, they discovered, copper in this situation, but it's interesting. It's an interesting history. So what was wild is, here's something wild. For most of human history, we treated diseases without any idea of that a missing mineral was the cause. Ancient healers were curing goiter with seaweed as far back as 2697, and it worked. They just didn't know why for another 4,500 years. You're going to see, like in the seaweed situation, there's a trace mineral that worked exactly for that kind of thing. So how did they know that process, going forward? So I thought that was pretty interesting. But there's another big one. Okay, so this one's interesting. Iodine. All right. So I had to write this one because it was pretty cool. Okay, the accidental discovery of iodine in 1811. So the iodine story is my favorite because it starts with gunpowder, not medicine. In 1811, a French chemist named Bernard Courtier was burning seaweed ash to extract sodium salts for Napoleon's army. He needed the material for saltpeter, a key gunpowder ingredient. He added too much sulfuric acid to the ash and produced an intense violet vapor that crystallized on cold surfaces. He had no idea what he'd made. He sent the crystals off to another chemist, Gay-Lussac, who identified it as a brand new element and named it iodine from the Greek word violet. Okay. So 2 years later, in 1813, a Swiss physician named Coindet learned of the discovery and had a hunch. The old folk remedy of treating goiters with seaweed had worked for centuries because of the iodine content. Interesting, huh? He started treating patients directly with iodine and watched their goiter shrink. It wasn't until decades later, 1896, that scientists actually found iodine sitting inside the thyroid gland itself, finally connecting the dots between the element and the organ and the disease. By 1956, there were about 1,700 different iodine-based medical products on the market, all traced back to a happy accident in a gunpowder lab. That was pretty good, right? So, biggest thing is, as you learned, one of the things about trace elements and trace minerals are going to be they're so minute in their quantity, but really they get discovered in us understanding the physiology of the body in certain actions. So when we finally discovered and started figuring out the thyroid, we saw that iodine was hanging out there quite a bit, right? And so that's where that comes from. I always like knowing that because, like, sometimes it gets you really, really good information. Oh, speaking of that, the tea of the night. This is raspberry. This is raspberry and, oh, dang it, I forgot. It's a loose leaf raspberry. There's some black tea in there. Delicious. Remember heart. Remember, oh, dang it. Oh, passion fruit. That's what it was. Raspberry and passion fruit, but it's a loose leaf. So it's a little earthier, but it's good. Okay. All right. So here's a couple more history lessons on zinc, chromium, and selenium. And this is the 20th century discover era. So the rest of the trace minerals were largely uncovered in the 20th century, often through animal research before anyone connected them to human health. Chromium is a great example. Researchers in the 1950s were trying to isolate something they called glucose tolerance factor from pork kidney. And when they finally identified it, it turned out to be built around chromium. That discovery is what eventually led chromium's now established role in blood sugar regulation. Isn't that cool? So now you're finding these cool elements or trace minerals that are super important. Selenium's story is almost the opposite. For decades, it was known only as a toxic substance found in certain soils. It took researchers well into the mid 20th century to flip the script and demonstrate that in small amounts, selenium wasn't just safe, it was essential, showing it up as a critical component of the antioxidant enzyme glutathione peroxidase, which is a big deal when we're talking about the processing and digestive areas of the body. So glutathione is a big one. Okay. So let's talk about the essential six. Okay. So the essential six, let's put it into it. I wanted to walk through the essential six. Okay. So trace minerals with the strongest and most well-established research behind them. And then later, we're going to go over the ones that are like touching kind of the edge. You can see like it's not a huge science that a lot of people know or have figured out. Now, a lot of times you're going to see these in like, the super duper secret supplementation that everybody gets. That's one of the reasons I do Whole Health Weekly, right? To make sure you're not getting duped into, the next best thing as far as what supplements out there that, may not hold up its weight when they're promising the world. So for each one, we'll cover what it actually does in your body, then what it looks like when you're running low. That'll be key, right? And where you can find it in real food. Those are the biggest ones. Then once we do that, we're going to go into what I call in the frontier minerals, which are the ones that are just getting started, right? Just getting started to get an understanding. So you have those. So the first one we're going to talk about is zinc. So zinc, if you don't know how many times I've told you people, how much zinc should we have, right? You remember all those things, right? The zaces, zinc, vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E, selenium. I always add quinine or quercetin to those. Don't do a lot of sugar before you go to work, right? This is my flu potion or what we need to be taking every time flu season comes around, sicknesses are around, right? Those kind of things. So zinc, its major function is the immune response, okay? Wound healing, taste and smell, which is fascinating, right? Protein synthesis and DNA synthesis, super important for your human body. Even more important to make sure it gets in your cells. That's where, even though I don't add this, quercetin and quinine, okay? Quercetin and quinine are huge to allow zinc to get into those cells. Here's some signs of deficiency. Slower wound healing, which makes sense. Frequent colds, which we talk about all the time, right? So zinc, making sure your zinc is up will help that tons. Loss of taste and smell. That one's always fascinated me because of when we went through a few years ago, that was the first thing that was happening was people losing their taste and smell even before feeling not well. Some people ended up not getting it back, right? And so zinc is one of those. Hair thinning. So another one that is a big symptom is loss of hair, right? So zinc, how long have all of us been, depleted in it? I don't know. So here's the biggest one. I want you to understand the food sources. Zinc, a lot of times, supplementation is pretty important and okay. So I don't want you to ever think you have to do it through food, but I like you knowing where you can get it at. Oysters, like number one. Beef, there's some good zinc in there. Pumpkin seeds, chickpeas, and cashews. Okay. So with zinc, Biggest thing is making sure that the cell always has its access to zinc. It's for cellular repair and immune resilience. It ties directly to the body's innate ability to recover from injury or illness. So for me, making sure every patient that I talk to is at a good level of zinc, it helps for anything because you have wound healing in this, you have immune system response. Those are all super important aspects of zinc. All right. Selenium. Remember, what did I say in the ZACEs, right? Vitamin or zinc, vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E, selenium. So I added 2 trace minerals to my ZACEs, right? So with my herbal ZACEs, there's 2 of them. So that's pretty critical. You need a lot? No, that's what's nice. It's a micronutrient, so you don't need a lot, but you need it. The function is it's a huge thyroid hormone regulation, antioxidant defense via glutathione peroxidase, and its immune support. Okay, so deficiency signs of selenium: fatigue, brain fog, weakened immunity, thyroid dysfunction. This one's kind of cool. Food sources, Brazil nuts. Usually, if you have 1 to 2 per day of Brazil nut, 2 of them a day, you can cover the daily need of selenium, which is pretty awesome. Sardines. I think we should all be eating sardines. No, I have a hard time with those, but I have this one store. A patient got me onto them. I don't know. They're pretty good. There's a certain one with some good flavor to them. But so Brazil nuts, sardines, eggs, and sunflower seeds all have a good amount of selenium. Okay. The healing angle. It protects cells from oxidative stress, an innate defense system. And it's one of the major cofactors in a lot of different immune system and hormone related situations. So selenium, big one, right? So I want you to just understand what these are and just go back to the big one that if your innate intelligence is telling you if you're fatigued, maybe you have some brain fog, weakened immunity, thyroid dysfunction. Okay. So I'm feeling bad a little bit because I had this one patient that got the COVID situation. And when he did that, he ended up with this really bad, like long COVID situation where his brain fog was just immense. After studying this of, selenium itself, I wish I could have gave him that advice of let's make sure your selenium level's high, right? Actually, probably all the trace minerals, because I think there's a depletion there when we were going through COVID, whatever that was, the attack or whatever, it was pretty significant on the trace mineral aspect of things. That's why I always love when people understand that we need the trace, we need the macro, we need it all, right? And so once we get those vitamins and minerals into our system, our health and longevity goes a lot longer. You just have to make sure it has the supply, right? We don't want to run a car on no oil. Okay. Iodine. Iodine's a funny one. Out of what? Seaweed, right? So we told that story before. The big function that we all kind of know is thyroid hormone synthesis from 2 different processes of thyroid hormone, a T3 and a T4. People that have had issues with thyroid know the difference. So it's the kind of the chemical process between one to the other, the active versus the passive thyroid hormone. And it has a big role in metabolic regulation. Okay. So what's interesting is you have a deficiency sign of iodine would be fatigue, weight gain, cold intolerance, which is fascinating, and goiter situation. So iodine has been a big depletion, I would say. This one is tricky because you can have and all of these are going to be this way. You can actually have too much iodine as well, just like every other micro mineral, which we'll talk about. most of them, like zinc, you can't really overdo it. We don't think, but always watch how much you have of these things. So there's issues with taking too much iodine as well. But most of the time, iodine could be a major key contributor to a ton of thyroid stuff that is going around. Okay. Or like when people suffer with it. The food sources for iodine are seaweed, cod, dairy, which is interesting, and iodized salt, which I was fascinated. So iodine infused salt. I'd probably not go that way. I'd probably use sea salt and do some seaweed or cod or supplement, those kind of things better, right? So versus I don't know, iodized salt, sea salt, I have no issue with. I've never have, like as we go. Iodized salt, I think that's pretty processed. So the healing angle is this. This is often majorly overlooked since iodized salt use has declined, which is kind of funny. They think that's the reason. Maybe because maybe our dairy is so ultra pasteurized, or maybe our cod isn't, from the ocean anymore. But I'll go with you on this stuff. So because we don't do as much iodized salt, wink, wink, it all of a sudden we're having a deficiency of iodine, which could be true, but could be not. A lot of people are eating seaweed, cod, natural farm, like fresh caught cod. Dairy's pretty fakey anymore. And then you have the iodized salt. So it could be a good deficiency that people are having, but just remember the deficiencies, the signs of it, right? Fatigue, weight gain, cold intolerance, and a goiter. So those are all things that could lead you to saying, hey, I need some iodine. So here's a couple more. So what did we do so far? So we've done 3, right? Yeah. 1, 2, 3. All right. This one's always interesting that people don't know this one, but which not that people don't know it. It's just, it's interesting always to tell people that we have copper. This actually functions as the function is connective tissue formation, iron metabolism, which is really interesting, cardiovascular health, and collagen cross-linking. So I always think that's cool. Like they've done now, when you look at like the copper fit back brace or, those kind of things, just having copper in something. I don't necessarily know if that's true. That, like all of a sudden your collagen will be better, or connective tissue formation. But, if I'm having a lot of arthritis, degenerative arthritis, those kind of things, copper micronutrients as a supplement may not be a half bad idea, right? So the deficiency signs of copper are fatigue, weakened bones, cardiovascular issues, and pale skin. Okay. This one is one of those that could be hailed as a problem before. So you have food sources are liver, shellfish, cashews, and dark chocolate. So dark chocolate, we might bring our levels up, but liver, I don't know. Not a lot of people are eating a bunch of liver, but those are good sources of copper. So this works in great with tandem with iron and zinc. Okay. So making sure you have copper, iron, zinc. It's a good mineral balance. Excess zinc and copper can deplete. Okay. So this is a good point that you have to watch. So with most of your trace minerals, it's not about how much, it's just making sure you have enough, or like in your body, the right amount. Okay. Because one of the things that happens with copper is that if, let's say you have too much zinc, so let's say you're downing zinc all the time, instead of taking what your body actually needs, if that happens, zinc will actually compete against copper for the actions that it does within the human body. Therefore, you'll end up with lower copper levels or depletion of copper. So you have to watch that. It's kind of the same with magnesium. If you remember back to the regular, I always say try to take as much as your body needs because it starts to compete with other things. If you have so much magnesium in, then other elements, let's say, like for this one, zinc, too much zinc makes copper go away, copper not be able to do its thing. And so that can happen. So that's why in trace minerals is kind of nice. You don't have to take a handful, and I don't have to say just take buckets of it because there's no end in sight, right? But this one can be a thing. So you want to make sure you just want to make sure you have all the trace minerals in so they can do their thing. And that's where copper comes in. Okay. And we'll go over like how much and all those kind of things. Chromium. It enhances insulin sensitivity, which is kind of a thing I'm thinking on social media. It knows there's a lot of herbals that understand chromium's really good on that herbal insulin sensitivity, blood sugar issues, those kind of situations. It kind of helps you get back the blood sensitivity. I often overlook this one for blood sensitivity. But it does support glucose metabolism. A lot of your medicines know this, right? So a lot of your medicines are based off of this kind of thing. So if you have signs of deficiency of chromium, you'll have blood sugar dysregulation, major sugar cravings. Okay. So these mean you might have low chromium. Food sources, and all of these, by the way, you can get supplementation. So don't freak out like shellfish and liver, aren't your thing. So food sources are broccoli, whole grains, and green beans. So a lot of times making sure you have chromium in your system, which I like in the supplementation aspect, because you just know you got it, right? I don't know if the broccoli you got is built like it used to be, right? Unless it's pure organic broccoli right out of your garden. How do we know, right? Is there a depletion in the chromium? I don't know. So sometimes I think it's just better safety wise to take some kind of trace mineral supplementation because it's very small. You could always make sure it's there, but it's a making sure you have the right chromium. Metabolic resistance. Okay. It links really well to blood sugar metabolic, like metabolic syndrome. A lot of your diabetics, it's a good one to make sure it's always in your system each and every day. You want to make sure all of these systems are there. Okay. So that's the biggest key. Okay. So I think this is where 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. All right. So let's keep going. I think the last of the 6, and then we're going to go into some really good ones. So like some ones that aren't talked about very much. Okay. So, and manganese is probably the last one. Manganese, its function is it's really big in bone formation, wound healing, antioxidant enzyme cofactor. So it's a superoxide dismutase. So deficiency signs there's a rare deficiency to manganese, but it is linked to bone demineralization and impaired wound healing. Okay. So food sources. So a lot of these, because they're so small of amounts, sometimes, you're going to be fine. Right. But, you want to make sure you understand them. Right. So it's something to look for, right. To make sure the innate intelligence has every tool it needs. Right. So food sources of this is pineapple, whole grains, nuts, and leafy greens. Connective tissue and bone remodeling. Manganese can be a big helper, and it can really pair well with chromium. What else? All of them actually, but copper and manganese are really good together as far as connective tissue and bone formation. All of these things could lead to, maybe helping you out quite a bit for, arthritis, osteoarthritis type situations. Because me, if you have, I'm not totally sold on glucosamine and chondroitin for situations. I think there's something to be said with like a bone broth, um, eating more towards cartilage and bone health than trying to supplementation that. I think fish oils, and now understanding these trace minerals might be a thing, because these trace minerals are used in actions of your body. They're literally a little different in a sense that all macros, right? Vitamin A, but those are supplies, and these are more in certain actions a lot of times in your human body, and you want to make sure all those are there. Now they're saying that they haven't found a ton of people with manganese deficiencies, but you never know. So that's why you want to say that. So this is another one. And the rest of these, okay, so from here on out is going to be more of the rarer ones that we're going to talk about. But there's not a lot of studies behind these. Okay, so they're more rare, but I want you to know what they are, so at least you can take a look at what they do, in that realm. Supplementation wise, they're there. Some people do it. A lot of times I'll recommend people, don't forget my little QR code up there too. It goes right to the thing. Look up trace minerals or micro minerals and just get one, so you can have them in your body all the time. Because we don't know. We would love to get these from our food, guys. Love to get them, but I don't know. I don't know if we're getting that. That's right. So this one's called molybdenum, and it is the next one. So these are the more rarer ones that no one really talks about, but we're going to do them. So this function is a cofactor. See how it's an action versus vitamin A? I'm like, it's good for this, good for that, right? But in essence, you are, not, you don't, vitamin C, they have actions, of course, in your human body, but these are literal, like, part of processes, right? And to make different enzymes and stuff like that. So that's why trace minerals are so important. So function, cofactor for enzymes that detoxify sulfites and break down toxins. Molybdenum is the deficiencies are very rare in humans, so they don't know what the deficiency signs are. But the food sources of this, and I would say maybe if it's really good for detoxing toxins, right? Maybe a deficiency sign would be something that you don't detox toxins well, which would be, let's say, fibromyalgia or something like that, where fake sugar puts your body into a state of crazy, because your immune system loses it. So that could be a reason, maybe, that molybdenum, could show up in that realm. But the food sources are legumes, grains, and organ meats. A lot of organ meats get a lot of trace minerals in it. So making sure you have molybdenum will help your detoxification support. Just remember that detoxing is a huge piece that your liver needs, right? So our liver is our biggest organ, but there's chemical processes all the time. Okay, so now let's go into lithium. So this is the one that I saw that I want to bring up tonight. I'd heard this psychologist talk about it, and I know it's going to be slightly controversial, but we're going to take it in as it is a trace mineral. Obviously, we want to see what it does in the body. I'm not going to recommend anything of taking it or anything, because I don't know a lot of information about it. I do know the types one is called lithium orate. It's on as a supplement. It's on there, but I would say, it's going to be one of those where you're going to have those micro minerals be the kicker to, what we're going to do. So, but these are unstudied currently a little bit, but that we want to talk about. So, okay. So this is lithium. Lithium has trace dietary amounts, not huge pharmaceutical doses. The function of lithium is emerging research into mood regulation and neuroprotection, which would make sense because they use it in psychology a lot in just bigger doses. We're talking food grade, and it's literally something your body, would need on a very, very low scale. Deficiency signs are not well established. Population studies link trace water lithium to mood outcomes. So they're just starting to look at this. Food sources are grains, vegetables, mineral water. Sometimes the mineral water will have it in there. It depends on the region. It's the same element used in psychiatric medicine, but it's in your food supply. Okay, so it's the same stuff they use in psychiatric medicine. Like I want to stay away from like why and how many and how severe a dose and all those kind of things. But so there's nothing out there that says take this stuff. However, it's super interested, right? Like how old is the trace minerals? How did they find iodine? It all goes back to the history, right? So they found it, started curing goiters. What you're going to see is, oh my goodness, natural lithium may have some good end stage results with something, right? We kind of know because if they're using it in psychology, I'm just saying, what do they use lithium for in psychology? Okay. Are they that far off? Not necessarily. So if you make sure that this is in your trace in minerals, maybe it helps quite a bit. So that is it's a very emerging science, and we will see. We will see where it goes. I'm guessing it'll be something we study in the next 2 to 5 years. But that's why you're on the 1% tribe, because I like giving you the good stuff ahead of time. That's right. So boron's our next one. Boron this one's kind of cool because it helps us support our other stuff, right? Vitamin D, K2, magnesium. So the function of boron is it supports vitamin D activation. It increases magnesium retention and bone metabolism. Deficiency signs, it's not clinically established, but think of what it does. So let's say you have trouble with sickness, right? So vitamin D is one of those that is a key player to that. Let's say you deplete magnesium quite quick. So all the time you got to constantly take more and more, or every night you got to take magnesium because of a restless leg or, something like that. Maybe if you took boron, maybe it's magnesium stays in your body a little longer, right? So the food sources of boron are apples, pears, legumes, nuts, broccoli, and Brussels sprouts. So remember bone joint health with boron, and it could be something that you want to take with magnesium, because we've said it over and over again. Magnesium has become one of those ones that we know really, really can affect how your body functions. Okay, here's another one. Silicon. So the function of this is connective tissue and collagen formation. Theory is the silicon is that it would have signs of skin, hair, or joint and bone quality. So maybe silicon. I haven't done enough research on this. I'll just tell you that right now. But the foods that you'd have issues with skin, hair, joint, and bone quality, possibly, if you don't have this silicon. Okay. So where do you get the food sources? Is oats, bananas, green leafy greens, and beer or silica from grains. Okay. So, or the silica from grains is what the beer content is. So remember that silicon. So always looking for stuff for connective tissue and bone joint health. As a chiropractor, this is going to be on my list. Trace minerals, man. I'm going to have a big grouping of trace minerals. Hopefully all of them are in there at the right thing. I'm going to find that one. Vanadium. Vanadium is the function is a possible role in glucose metabolism. There is no deficiency signs yet. They haven't figured it out, but a good food source is mushrooms, shellfish, black pepper, and parsley. It's not established necessarily as an essential because a high dose of vanadium could be high toxicity risks. So this is one that you want to do way more research before we even talk about it. But I want you to know it. That's what tonight's about. And the last one is nickel. So nickel it's possibly a cofactor role like before. So a lot of these, remember, they find these once they're doing and they're studying and they figure out chemical reactions within the human body that help us produce certain things, right? There hasn't been any signs are established in humans, and there's a lot of food sources of legumes, nuts, and chocolate, okay? But I would say most of the stuff, except for the emerging ones, I would say stick to your 6 or 7, but it doesn't really matter in a sense. I just want the people in 1% tribe, my hopes are you're like wanting to learn about each individual one just to say, okay, this is another thing that I need to have my human body know. If I have these trace minerals, it's like I always think of as a car analogy, right? Your macro minerals might be your gas, right? Your oil and your gas, those two types of fluids. This would be more like windshield wiper fluid specifically, or, just different kinds of fluids or joint, those kind of things they're super essential, to all these different aspects of your body. You just don't need a lot of it. You don't need a lot. You need but you can't be depleted of it, if that makes sense. Okay. So hopefully I didn't bore you guys to death. I really liked the subject though. I was like, as we were going, how I work. I like to study myself too. So sometimes you forget a lot of times with that trace minerals, like what it could do. Some of the connective tissue ones are pretty awesome. And so to have those in the back of your head, maybe, what if by me taking, let's say, magnesium and my friend taking magnesium, here's a good example. Sometimes magnesium, there's one called magnesium threonate that's super good for headaches. Okay. So what if they are taking magnesium, but the magnesium threonate's not working for the headaches? Is there another step? Well, yeah. So maybe we get, what was it called? We get my boron. So let's maybe make sure that person's taking boron, with the magnesium and see if that makes a difference. Because a lot of these are going to be hard to know if you're deficient in, for sure. So just to let you know that as well. But all right, so here's the fun part. I love this part. So at the end of this one is always, I got 3 recipes for us to get as many in our food as we possibly can. So these are some recipes you can do to get your trace minerals in. All right. So here we go. This one's called the Zinc and Copper Power Bowl. So it's a warm chickpea, cashew, and pumpkin seed bowl built to deliver zinc, copper, and manganese in one sitting. It's great as a post adjustment after or post workout meal. So this is 1.5 cups of canned chickpeas, drained and rinsed. 0.3 cups of raw pumpkin seeds, 0.3 cups of raw cashews, roughly chopped, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 2 garlic cloves minced, 2 cups of baby spinach, 1 lemon juiced, half a teaspoon of sea salt, half a teaspoon of ground cumin, and then 1 cup of cooked quinoa. And then you put that all in. Ooh, here's how the steps are. So you toast the seeds and nuts in a dry skillet over medium heat. To toast the cups of the raw pumpkin seeds and the cashews, roughly chopped into fragrant, lightly golden, often stirring it often. And then you saute the chickpeas and add tablespoon olive oil to the skillet. I'm not going to read this whole thing to you because I'm going to make you all get on my tribe1.substack.com, and you can look that up and you will have the recipe, or probably you could do a Google search of a zinc and copper power bowl. But the idea is easily eatable, right? So this could be an easy salad that you could do that would really put your trace minerals in there. And if you can notice, you're going to get a lot more than just your trace minerals. This will just help you get there a little quicker. Okay, so I like this one. Brazil nut selenium energy bites. Okay, so no bake energy bites using Brazil nuts. Remember, we can get our selenium from just 2 of them, right? It's from selenium. Okay, so sorry, no bake energy bites using Brazil nuts for selenium and sunflower seeds for extra antioxidant support. It is half a cup of Brazil nuts, finely chopped, 1 cup of rolled oats, half a cup of sunflower seed butter, 0.3 cups of honey, 0.3 cups of sunflower seeds, 2 tablespoons of ground flaxseed, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and then 0.3 teaspoons of sea salt. So you mix them up in a big bowl, all the dry ingredients, and then you add the wet ingredients in there until you get a nice dough, and then you chill them. If you ever done an energy bite, you should. They're really fun, very easy. And then you make them into little balls, and they'll stay pretty good for the rest of the week. We do a protein bite here. I'm kind of not allowed because I put way too much honey in there, so mine are all gooey and crappy. But then the kids and Rachel do a much better job. Protein bites do not last in our home. They are very, very good for you, and they taste delicious. But they are such a good pre-meal. Protein bites we do at home. Other than this one's a really good one. So your first one, you could do peanut butter, chocolate chips. Let's throw some flax and some chia seeds in there. You take some oats, you do all of that, and then you pour honey in, and then you mix it until you get it a good consistency and make little balls out of them, and then put them in the refrigerator. And as many as you make, I promise you'll eat way too many of them, but they're so good for you. They're really, really fantastic. So remember that kind of eating. The bites are a really, really good way to go. This is a major good way to go. In fact, I want to try this one actually soon. This one was kind of cool. The iodine, and this is the last one recipe I'll give you, but the iodine-rich seaweed and cod bowl. It's a simple seared cod and seaweed rice bowl designed to naturally deliver iodine and support thyroid health. And you get that seaweed action. It's a little hard to get in there, right? So 2 cod fillets, 2 tablespoons of dry wakame seaweed, 2 cups of cooked short grain rice, 1 tablespoon of sesame oil, 1 tablespoon of soy sauce, 1 teaspoon of rice vinegar, 1 green onion sliced, 1 teaspoon of sesame seeds, 0.3 teaspoons of sea salt, and 0.3 teaspoons of black pepper. You get the idea. And then the rest of this recipe will be in my newsletter, tribe1.substack.com. So we can do that. But isn't that cool? You can actually eat towards the trace minerals that we're all missing. And a lot of times, do you have to do a lot? We'll see. Sometimes the neatest thing to me about the trace minerals, to be honest with you, is a very easy fix in the sense of I don't have to take a lot to notice a big change. So if I end up going, man, I got fatigue, and then I take this stuff and I feel noticeably better, or that fatigue starts to go away, it's pretty easy tell, right? So that's the biggest thing, like the nutritional blood work that we're bringing into the office, which is fantastic. Saw that I was a little low on zinc. So that told me that was a great tell. Started taking more zinc, felt amazing. So just to let you know, like trace minerals are super, super important. In fact, probably the most underrated minerals out there, or nutritional supplementation in my mind, because everybody's looking for the big fix. But if we can get to that point of really just looking at all of it, right? And tonight, hopefully, we'll get going in that right direction, where you guys got some good knowledge on these trace minerals and what it means. You just don't need a lot, but they're so important to the actions of your body. A lot of times you'll need all these other ones just to supply your energy and all those kind of things. But your micro and trace, if they're not there, some action of your body's not working properly. So that's why it's super important. So what are we going to do for our 1%? Try one of these recipes. I recommend the Brazil and sunflower seed nut energy bite. I think I'm going to try that this week. Brazil nuts, you get 2 in your mouth. You got as much selenium as you need. That's pretty awesome. Maybe that's why they say you can go toxic on Brazil nuts. Maybe that's what it is. Interesting. So, understanding, take these make something, make these energy bites, see how you like them, see how they taste to you. Start taking a really good trace mineral, right? Find a good one. Go on my full script. Do this QR code. Get your own trace mineral wherever it's at. Get a really solid one. Look at what's in there. Is all the stuff that we talked about, especially the top 6, going to be in there, right? That's what we want, right? So we want to make sure we got those supplements in our diet at some weight. Okay. So hopefully you guys enjoyed tonight. I always love doing it, especially tonight where, there's so much in nutrition, to be honest with you, that if people pretend they're experts all the time, they're nuts, or they're not thinking it through, or they want to pretend they remember all this stuff, which it's pretty fascinating. Like, as you look though, like the neat things, it's obvious no one remembers because of how important iodine and important zinc and selenium have been just in our conversations, in all of those different things. But why didn't we talk about all the other ones, right? And so getting a trace mineral into your daily routine is going to be fantastic. So with that said, you guys have a great night. The big thing is remember, Wednesday night, Whole Health Weekly. It's either going to be Whole Health Weekly or an interview. So I will keep you posted on that. But 8:30 Wednesday night, rain or shine. You guys have a great week. It's going to be a perfect week. Sun's out. Enjoy this stuff. With that said, you have an awesome, fantastic week with some trace minerals. Go get some liver. That'd be good. All right. Have a good one.